Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe, Mary Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock, recording this about 3:30 on Thursday. And of course, look, we got to talk about the news of the day, and that is Shedeur Sanders pulled over for going 101 miles an hour on I-71. And it wasn't the first time that something like this has happened with Shedeur Sanders, because we also come to find out that he was pulled over in Medina, failed to appear at his court hearing on Monday. So that's still kind of out there as well. So Mary Kay, there have always been a lot of speeding incidents in sports. We all know about Myles Garrett and of course how that ended and how much worse that could have potentially been, and then all the tickets he acquired. But I guess just your reaction, I know you put a column up on Wednesday, you're going to put another one up here after we're done recording this, about Shedeur Sanders and all of this. Just what was your initial thought?
Well, it was bad enough when he was stopped for going 101 on Tuesday morning, Monday night, Tuesday morning at 12:30 a.m., because he's in the middle of rookie orientation right now. Okay. He's in the middle of rookie orientation. So you don't want to be out speeding and getting stopped by the police at 12:30 a.m. going 101 miles an hour. And again, I know that people speed. I know people get speeding tickets. I've gotten a speeding ticket or two in my life. I'm sure maybe you guys have, maybe not. But speeding is one thing, but going 40 miles an hour over the speed limit, actually 41 miles an hour over the speed limit at 12:30 in the morning, when you're in the middle of a four-way quarterback competition, and when you were also, it seems like, involved with another female driver who was going 92 miles an hour at the same time you were going 101, that's reckless behavior, in my opinion. That's reckless behavior. It's dangerous, and I don't care what anybody says. That is not what you want from your rookie quarterback. That's not a good look. Okay, so that was bad enough. And then, of course, you dig a little deeper and you find out that he was also stopped 2 weeks ago. Not even 2 weeks ago. 11 days before this incident, he was stopped in Medina, where that was also where Myles Garrett had his Porsche flipping incident. So he was stopped in Medina for speeding, and we don't know how fast he was going in that particular incident, but it was fast enough to get stopped and cited once again by the Ohio State Highway Patrol. Again, I'm curious to see what time of day it was. We know it was a Friday. It was June 6th. But these things are happening right in the midst of OTAs, rookie orientation, quarterback competition, and then, of course, on Monday, which was an eventful day for Shedeur. On Monday, he fails to show up for his arraignment. So that is also reckless behavior, in my opinion. You can't just not pay the ticket, not show up, maybe not inform the Browns what's going on, because I'm guessing if he had told them right away what had happened, that they would make sure that he was on his P's and Q's and that he didn't miss an arraignment and that there was no misunderstanding about this whatsoever. So I have to wonder, did he even tell them about the initial incident? And then, of course, when you break for summer, the last thing the Browns want is to get that phone call at 1:00 in the morning saying one of your players just got into trouble. That's what they don't want. They send them forth with marching orders to mind their manners over the break and to come back safe and healthy. So there are a lot of things wrong with this, and I'm sure a lot of people will think maybe I'm overreacting, but I don't feel like I'm overreacting, and I am not going to apologize for how I feel about this. I think it's a red flag. I think Myles Garrett needs to sit down with him and talk to him. Myles could have died if he did not have his seatbelt on. His passenger could have died. And I think that this is sending up some little smoke signals that need to be dealt with.
Yeah, before we continue with that, Ashley, you were going to jump in there when Mary Kay was talking about if you've ever had a speeding ticket. And I wonder if you're the only one on this pod who has never had one. Because I had a couple in college, a few in college. Now, I did not have a car. I was not going 101 miles an hour. I might not have owned a car that could have gone 101 miles an hour, but yeah, I certainly had a few little traffic dust-ups in my college years.
Knock on wood, I have never gotten a speeding ticket. I've gotten parking tickets, and especially when I was in college at John Carroll in University Heights, Ohio, there are very specific rules about when and where you can be parked on the street from like 2 to 6 a.m. and like you have to call your car in, but sometimes you forget to call your car in. They would be out looking for you. So I've gotten parking tickets. I've somehow avoided getting a speeding ticket. But truly, I mean, this area of Ohio, like I truly think the Browns should sit down with all like players when they come in and explain like I-71, the parts of 480, the parts of 90 that are essentially just speed traps too at this point, and just remind them to be driving carefully and be aware of their surroundings.
Yeah, so to spin it back to this more serious tone, obviously, like I don't want to downplay the going 101 miles an hour. I mean that's fast, right? Like if my son got pulled over for speeding, it would be like, okay, what are you doing? And then if I found out it was like 101 miles an hour, I'd be like, yeah, you're not going to be driving your car for a little while. So I don't want to downplay the seriousness of that. But to me, the thing that stands out in a few of the things that Mary Kay said there, Ashley, is you work for an NFL football team. Like this is your employer. And I just can't imagine a world where an NFL football team would know that you had a court date on a Monday and you failed to show up. Now, we don't know all the details of it, of course, but like you don't see that. You don't go into these court records and see a bunch of, well, this guy failed to show up to his arraignment. It's usually the team has people who are either going to make sure you get there or someone is going to be there to represent you. And so that's beyond just the dangerous nature of it. That's the thing that concerns me about this series of events is the decision making. And you're trying to be the face of a franchise here and the face of a city and an organization. You've got to make better decisions all around.
Right. And I think that's the thing that I'm trying to emphasize. I am working on my second column on this. And I made some of these points in the first column that I wrote yesterday. But right now, everything that these guys are doing, especially the rookies, they're definitely being scrutinized. But everything that these guys are doing in the quarterback competition, it's all being thrown into the hopper. And what you do off the field and what you do on the field, it all matters. It's all part of the evaluation. I don't care if the team will admit that or not. But this goes on the negative side of the ledger for Shedeur Sanders in terms of winning the quarterback competition right now. I just think that, okay, maybe it's not a huge issue for the Browns, but it's something. It's a red flag and it needs to be addressed. Now, maybe he's just a recent college kid who's having a good time in his what they called supercharged Dodge Ram truck. Maybe it's just that. Maybe it's not a sign of a potential larger issue, but maybe he's blowing off some steam because of the quarterback competition is kind of stressful for him. And if so, then that needs to be addressed. So I think they need to get with him as soon as possible. I think his family, probably his dad, will have a conversation with him about this. And I think he needs to be very, very careful. Because if I'm keeping score right now, this is not a good look for him in the quarterback competition. It's not a good look. And I think it says, okay, let's literally pump the brakes a little bit here and figure out what's going on and make sure that he's okay in his mentals and everything. We know that even just 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, he told us that, he's up in the middle of the night. He's tweeting something out at 2:00 in the morning that he slept with his flashlight on because he had some kind of a spiritual event in the middle of the night and he was really scared. So, you know what? Here's the other thing to consider about some of these guys. They're away from home for the first time. They're away from their families for the first time. They come from a very tight-knit, close family. I mean, he could be homesick a little bit. I don't know. Or maybe he was just out having fun. But it is a little disturbing in my mind that he was with a girl. The girl was driving 92. He was driving 101. I think they're very lucky that they didn't hurt each other or themselves or someone else. And again, I'm sure I sound like get off my lawn to some people right now. But when you're in the middle of rookie orientation, which is all about trying to figure out how to conduct yourself as a professional on and off the field, this just can't happen. And it needs to be addressed. Miles should talk to him. The Browns need to talk to him, and they need to figure this out.
So, Ashley, going back to that decision-making part, and just sort of, I mean, you're general thoughts on this when all of this kind of happens. Again, it just, to me, I keep coming back to like this. I mean, we're at that facility all the time. These guys their cars are getting driven away to get washed and have gas put, like these teams make it easy for these guys to do things. So again, it's just this decision making and this, like, the fact that whatever happened with this thing in Medina, that's just, at least a little bit of a red flag, like that he wasn't, I don't know, whatever. I already kind of explained that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, for me, what you said. Like, I can't imagine a scenario in which the Cleveland Browns organization knows about this and doesn't handle it, because they have people that handle all kinds of things, like, right? Like, serious and non-serious, as you were alluding to there, Dan. Like, I think they know, if they know when something like that is going on, they jump in, they are involved immediately. It's very efficient a lot of times, especially when it comes to the legal system. So yeah, that to me is the oddest part, I want to say, of all of it. The other thing too that, I keep seeing people ask, like, well, why is this reported? I mean, anywhere that a major name player is involved in a speeding ticket like this, it's news. Like, it is news. And I've seen people say, well, what about Myles Garrett? I mean, Myles Garrett, we went after hard at the time of that accident because he could have died. Myles Garrett got up there and did a press conference the week after he crashed his car and explained his thinking and about how he was going to listen to his family more, about not driving so fast, and that's basically like his one vice, right? Like, we've acknowledged these things when they've happened to other players too. So this idea that it's just Shedeur and that's why people are writing about it or talking about it, like, it's just not true. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, go back to 2022 if you weren't following the Browns then and see all the stuff we wrote about Myles Garrett and that accident and how lucky he was and the Browns were. I mean, we even talked about that late into the season because it clearly had a physical impact on him in his playing. Like, it was something that was very relevant for a very long time. So I think, like, Shedeur and the Browns are lucky this wasn't that he didn't crash or hurt somebody else or hurt himself in any way. But it's newsworthy. Like, it's newsworthy whenever somebody on a professional football team that has this kind of name recognition or star power, even if it is quote unquote just a speeding ticket, as some people want to say, it's going to get talked about and reported on. It just is.
Well, and again, too, this comes with the territory of being potentially wanting to be the face of a franchise. So, like, on the one hand, he's 23 years old. He probably just did something a bunch of 23-year-olds, maybe not a bunch, but other 23-year-olds have done, especially, a very rich 23-year-old who's driving a car that can go really fast, probably pretty easily, right? I mean, like I said, if I had a car like that in college, maybe I'd have driven 101 miles an hour. I don't know. I'd never had a car that could go that fast in college. But the flip side of that, Mary Kay, is you are vying to be the face of an organization. And that's just, I mean, there's not a more important person on a football team than the starting quarterback. It's why. And again, this is a very different discussion. This is the Deshaun Watson thing. Like, you were bringing someone in to be the face of your organization that had a whole bunch of lawsuits, against him. Now, again, that is not even in the same ballpark as a speeding ticket. So I don't want anyone to think I'm comparing the two. But the point I'm making is, like, whatever your quarterback does, it represents your organization. And to me, again, it just goes back to this series of decisions where you're looking at two speeding tickets in a very short span. You're looking at a potentially missing a court appearance. Like, that's the part that concerns me just from a football and a team standpoint.
Right. And 101 miles per hour. And again, I wish we knew the details of the first ticket. We would be able to speak to it more intelligently. But at 101 miles per hour, it would be very easy to lose control of your car. It would not take much at all. And we know that, a lot of these young people also, or all people now, are dealing with their phones and different things like that. We have no idea if he was or wasn't. I don't know. But sometimes there are phones involved. And that's just a very dangerous high rate of speed. And I think he's very lucky. And I think this news broke on the same day that Henry Ruggs, the former Raiders wide receiver, number 12 overall pick in 2021, was interviewed. He was allowed to go out and talk. He's in prison right now. Now, completely different once again because he was drunk driving. And there is no evidence whatsoever that Shedeur Sanders was impaired in any way. I watched the whole body cam footage, and from what I heard from that officer, he did not even mention the word alcohol or anything like that. So that's off the table. At least it is seemingly off the table. But nevertheless, Henry Ruggs was talking about how he wished he could turn back the clock because he, of course, it was a fatal accident that killed a young woman and her dog. And I mean, that something like that could have happened for Shedeur and or his friend. This could have had a very tragic ending. And I think it has to be taken seriously because I think there is, at least now we can see, somewhat of a pattern here. If that's happening, if you're getting pulled over for this twice in 11 days, there's a very good chance that maybe, just maybe, you might have gone over the speed limit another time in your life. So they have to talk to him. They have to figure out what's going on. And once again, like you said, Dan, they're expecting these quarterbacks, one of these quarterbacks or all these quarterbacks, to be the face of the franchise. You have to be able to handle adversity. You have to be able to handle all the things that are going to be put on your plate. And I just think that this is something that it can't be taken lightly and it can't be ignored. I think that the Browns, in addition to talking to him and figuring it out, I think they need to do something in terms of conduct detrimental to the team. Because like I said, he's basically on the clock. I mean, this is rookie orientation. Want to be screwing up during rookie orientation. So I think Shedeur needs to come out and apologize for this. And I think he needs to promise that it's never going to happen again, that he knows kids are looking up to him. I think he should talk to Myles Garrett, and maybe he needs to take some kind of a safe driving course or something like that. And I know I sound, like I said, get off my lawn-ish about this, but I just don't think this can be overstated right now.
Well, and I think too, from the competition standpoint, the last thing that Kevin Stefanski wants to do, and the last thing any of these guys should want, is to get a call up to Kevin's office right now. And I'm sure that at some point over the last, whether they knew about that initial ticket or this is the first time they're finding out about things, and this is the first ticket that they've known, whatever it is, for whatever reason, I'm sure that Shedeur Sanders has been called into Kevin Stefanski's office. And when they're sitting here going through this competition, again, it's not just, did you make a bunch of good throws in 7-on-7 in May or June? Is going to be, are you ready? Like, are you ready to be this guy? Are you ready to be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns and be the guy that, again, like I keep saying, ready to be the face of this team? And are you going to make good decisions? Are you going to have to deal with stories like this over and over again? Yeah, I mean, off the field, sure, he's going to get some points on his license and pay a fine. But this became something because of who he is and the position he plays and the fact that he's an NFL player. So it's just bigger than what it would be for anyone else. And he has to understand that. And that all is part of the equation as they're deciding, who do we want to be our week 1 starter? And that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that this eliminates him from ever being the Browns starting quarterback. But it goes into this decision-making process right now because we've talked about sort of what Shedeur needs to do and the reasons that maybe he's not quite at the level yet of Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco and Dylan Gabriel, even though what we're seeing in practices looks pretty good. There's other things, maturity, kind of knowing that, understanding NFL offenses, all of that stuff that he has to catch up on. So this is just a thing that works against that, Ashley.
Yeah, and I think when you just have a wide open position battle like this, everything is going to count because it has to count. It would be the same, maybe on a slightly lesser scale, but you think about other position battles on this team, right? There's an open spot we talked about the other day for the starting edge rusher. If one of those 4 guys who's competing for that gets in some kind of trouble off the field, I'm sure that's going to be a mark in the con side of the ledger on the Browns' own personal pro-con list as they try to figure out who's going to get these starting jobs. I think it just all counts. And quarterback, especially, just because there's so much that comes with the position. There's so much pressure that comes with that job. It's unlike, really, I would say, any other position in sports. Not just in the NFL, but in sports. It is unlike anything else in terms of how much is on you. I mean, even if you're not a starter, if you're a backup quarterback, how much is on you? It all has to, as Mary Kay said, it all has to go in the hopper, I think, in terms of your evaluation. And the fact that it's not somebody with like a job locked up. Yeah, like I'm sure in some capacity this is going to impact him, but like you said, like long term, does it prohibit him from like ever being the starter here? No. But it needs to be, I think, like a learning experience in terms of like, hey, this is how quickly things can change. Like, this could have been a lot worse. And at the very least, now there's negative attention on you that could have been avoided if this didn't happen. So, all of those things, I think, are the important thing to take away from this experience if you are Shedeur Sanders.
All right, there we go. A speeding podcast here on in the middle of June. Go ahead, Mary Kay. You got one more thing?
Yeah, there's something else that I wanted to add here real quick, and that is, once again, the rate of speed is, I find it to be so disturbing, because at that speed, there's a good chance that one wrong little move and somebody's not surviving. At 101, somebody's probably not surviving if this doesn't go well. Even if you're going 55 in a 40 or something like that, you're not almost guaranteed that somebody's going to die. But at 101 and 92, somebody's not walking away from that crash generally, right? I mean, that's the thing that I think makes this so serious, is the reckless, very high rate of speed. And when you are in a supercharged Dodge Ram truck, chances are maybe it's the other person that isn't going to make it, because, that seems like a pretty solid vehicle that you're in. But maybe somebody wouldn't be that fortunate to be driving something like that. And I mean, even just, we're in that time of year where at that time of night, kids are coming home from graduation parties and proms. Well, proms are over with, but it's graduation party season, Strongsville, all kinds of kids out on the highway at that hour probably. And not super crazy experienced drivers per se. And I think it's a recipe for disaster. And I think he's lucky, and everyone should thank their lucky stars that no one got hurt here. But this just definitely is something that has got to be talked about.
Okay, that'll do it for this Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Get subscribed on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Our YouTube is Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. Our Instagram, Orange and Brown Talk. And our Twitter is Orange Brown Talk. For Mary Kay and Ashley, I'm Dan. Thanks for listening, everybody.